It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, January 31st. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is doing our first player profile of the bye week, and that is on Morgan Frost.
Yeah, I see where if we both agree or disagree on this one.
Absolutely. We're going to get to that and our weekly Phantoms update all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with the incredible Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where we post about our episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail, and we will be having mailbags later this week. So send us a message with your Flyers questions. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Russ, we put out a call on our YouTube feed. We posted about any requests for, a deep dive into some players while we have this bye week. And Michael requested Morgan Frost. So we were actually really excited to get this request. He's an interesting case to talk about this season. Right now, Morgan Frost has 10 goals, 15 assists for 25 points in the 50 games so far. Last season, he played only 55 games and had 16 points. So he's obviously well above his point total from last season in fewer games played so far. So clearly, the eye test will tell you and the numbers tell you with points that he's made a significant leap forward here. And, there are some metrics that he's made an improvement on as well. His expected goals for is up. His expected goals against is down. It's very slight, but with these numbers, even a slight change in that ratio makes a huge difference out on the ice. His points per 60 is 1.9. He has more offensive zone starts than last season. Last season was the lowest point in his career thus far. He was 60-40 offensive zone starts, and this year it's 65% to 35%. So his usage has been slightly different this season.
Right. I'm not giving John Tortorella credit for this, though, because he basically did this out of necessity. When he found out Kevin Hayes couldn't play center, then all of a sudden Morgan Frost got this opportunity. Had Kevin Hayes been playing center this whole time, that little extra opportunity wouldn't be there. But this development was happening even under Mike Yeo. We have to give him credit for that because, like you said, the difference is only slight. And when I look over the numbers, it's not a great difference. Some of those are team numbers too, where he's paired with better players, and the team is definitely better overall with team defense. So some of those have affected the numbers too, but he has just had a natural progression. And again, this is why I always say you don't know when a player is really going to start to hit their stride. Some of them can come in at 18 years old like Sidney Crosby, some can't, most can't. And then you get someone like Morgan Frost who's been making these little strides over the years, and now 22 going, like he's actually 23, now he's hit it. And that's fine. I mean, that's, again, that's a natural progression. Everybody's different. It also has a lot to do with your line mates and usage. And yeah, those things have changed, and he's been able to live up to it. And that's been really good for the team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And it's interesting the Kevin Hayes of it all to get Morgan Frost.
Mhm.
That additional opportunity there. I think that is where, him playing center gets him on that line, to your point with JVR and Owen Tippett, right?
Correct.
And if you look at what Owen Tippett has been doing with becoming more and more of a playmaker, I
Hmm.
think it's allowed Morgan Frost in some ways to kind of go back and forth between being a playmaker and being the shooter in this case. And I think that that has allowed Morgan to take more shots on net because Tippett is feeding the puck more. And you see the two of them working together behind the net. And then JVR comes in to post up net front, right, for his usual bag. And I think that's worked out really
Yeah,
well together.
and again, had a lot more players been healthy or playing at their natural positions, Frost wouldn't even be playing center this year. Like he wouldn't. And we wanted him to play center because I think that's his natural position. What's interesting is the only thing that's down is his faceoffs, but that's natural because again, he's playing up. Like he probably
Right.
should be a third pairing center, third line center, and he's second line or sometimes first, depending on the game. So that makes a big difference, and he's holding his own. So that's good. That's good with the points. It's good with the ice time. The skating looks good. The decision making is much, much better. So all of that has worked out, and that's why I feel like really Tortorella hasn't had to do too much with him this year. When he got the opportunity, he pretty much grabbed it.
Yeah, and you talk about him playing up to where he should be, relative to where he should be. And so while I wouldn't say he's overall a huge impact player on this team, you look at other guys who I think are standing out a little bit more than he is. Morgan Frost has improved steadily enough where he's contributing, but I don't think he's like a huge breakout player on this team per
No,
se.
but it doesn't mean it can't be next year.
That's true. That is absolutely true. I do think also just, from the eye test, aside from the metrics, he definitely has more confidence with the puck out there. I think that he's skating through the zone a little bit more than he was in terms of just dumping the puck off. Now that could be a systems thing as well, where they're emphasizing zone entries a little bit more this season than
Yeah,
they have in the past. They still dump the puck, I would say more than I would like, but at the same time, I think Morgan Frost has taken that opportunity, and you see him even like carrying the puck through traffic to do a zone entry, and that just shows confidence that he feels like he can come through the other side and create a play out of it.
right. So and the other thing that's helped Frost is Noah Cates because Noah Cates also 23. It's not a real big surprise. Again, hasn't needed a lot of help. And, like I said, who do you want to count as the number one? You want to count Frost as the one, him as the two. Cates has played number one also. Either way, but Frost has done better on faceoffs than Cates. And so that's been a nice thing. Neither are where they should be, but at
Right.
least they're at percentages that, for guys that were just starting to get the chance this year, decent. Next year, if it's those two again, and I'm gonna say it's going to be. I mean, again, we have not seen or heard or anything about Sean Couturier. I can't count him in the lineup. So whether Frost is one and Cates is one, or either one is one or two, these are, two good young guys that you can grow with. Are they superstars? No, but they're good players and you can build around them. And I do think there's still more upside for both. And so that's the good thing. I think, Cates is a little ahead of him defensively right now, but,
Right.
Frost is a lot ahead of him offensively compared to Cates. So I think it's a good comparison just in the sense they're both fighting for the same things.
Yeah, and they have a slightly different style of play, which I
They
think
do.
bodes well for both of them in terms of you need both of their styles of play on a
Yeah.
hockey team to be successful. So, in terms of who's further up in the lineup eventually, I don't know what the answer is. It'll depend on who else is around them. But
Like when they start
uh,
the second half of the year, Frost will probably be the number one to start. But,
yeah.
Torts has put Cates there too. Like he has no problem doing it.
Right. So just looking at some of the other things about Morgan Frost, his usage, we talked about how he's getting more offensive zone starts. He already has more minutes on the power play this season than he did all of last season. 120 of his 777 minutes so far, according to Hockey Reference, are on the power play.
Yeah, this is where the team has done a nice job and getting him out there for that. I think that's where last year they failed. I actually think for the short time that Frost was under Vigneault was having him with the top power play with all the right guys, and he was performing until the shoulder injury. And then after that, it sort of went astray, and I think they've gotten back to that now. And that's good because he should be on it, and he is a good power play guy. There's no question about it. He has good vision. His passing is good. His shot is good. His strength is much better, so he can get the pucks in the corner. He's doing a lot of that. So I just think for whatever reason, this took a really roundabout road, and for all the people that were gonna count him as a bust or write him off, this is why you don't.
Yep. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about Morgan Frost and get into a potential contract for him, and then begin our Phantoms Tuesday report coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. And as we know, our Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl. So bet on Jalen Hurts to throw a couple of touchdowns or anything like that. Go Birds. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/locked on to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Russ, getting back to Morgan Frost, I think that, in terms of what he still needs to work on, according to John Tortorella, he needs to clean up his own mistakes more often. That's something he sees from other players where they have, an unfortunate turnover. And that's happened with Morgan Frost this season, in terms of getting back to clean up your own mistakes. He sees other players doing that sort of thing more often than Morgan Frost does. Do you buy that criticism?
Oh, I mean, he's got 22 takeaways. I mean, that's pretty good. So, a lot of times, and what's he in the giveaway department? In the giveaway department, he is 15. So, like, how often is this really happening? I think he's got a warped sense of it. I do. I I think he's been really good on that side of the puck, and I don't have a problem. He was good on it last year, and he's even better now. So, like, I don't see it. I think that's just something Torts is saying to the media.
Yeah, it could be that he never wants to gas somebody up too much and needs
That's
to
what it
find
is.
something to be critical of. But I do think he does make some mistakes out
Sure.
there, and I do think that there are some things that he could work on. I would like to see him, if he could be as successful on a different line to show that he's the driver of that line. I think that would be like a step forward, because if you really dig into the metrics of that line with JVR and Tippett, the metrics are really high with those three together. They have greater than 50% chance of the scoring chances for versus against.
Yeah.
If you look at natural stat trick and all of their line combo data. But you find that when you take like Morgan Frost away versus taking Owen Tippett or JVR away from that combo, like the numbers go down a little bit.
Yeah, and that
And
line's
so
gonna change when JVR gets traded, like it is. So
exactly. So I want to see him in a different combination be just as successful as he is now. I think that would be an important thing to prove that it's him. It's not the people around him.
no, I think it will be. I think he is a play driver, and the other thing is that bodes very well is only 18 penalty minutes. Now he might be
Hmm.
up a few from last year, but again, he's playing against much better competition than he had to last year on the top two lines. So that's something where that's a big deal. That's and look, that's something that uh, I think he has improved on just
Yeah,
because
I
he is
think
facing better competition.
it's been improving over the course of this season. I think at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season, as we recall, he probably took a few bad penalties that
Yep.
stood out that led to goals against. And I think that's improving, even though he does still take an occasional penalty.
Mhm.
I think they're not as egregious as they were earlier in the season. So that is definitely a good sign. In terms of a potential upcoming contract, he is on an expiring 1 year, 800,000 RFA deal. And so, I look at Morgan Frost, and as we get to, approaching the trade deadline last year, that's when Chuck Fletcher re-signed Ristolainen, right?
Yeah.
And locked him in. Is Morgan Frost one of those guys that he's going to lock in early, which seems to be his method, or is it going to be off season?
No, and it's not gonna even be long-term off season, I don't believe, because again, we don't know what's gonna happen with the front office. We know the coach likes him. We don't know how much input the coach is gonna have into his next contract. So based on all that, I think he's gonna get a 3-year bridge deal. That's what I think he'll get, and they'll give him, a fair amount on that. Um, I want to see his final numbers before I give you a number because it's kind of unfair because right now we're not,
Right.
we still got a quarter of the season left. So, but I think that's what they're going to do with him. And it's not necessarily the worst thing. Sometimes you are walking a guy to unrestricted free agency at that point, but I do believe it would be fair simply because right now this is like the first season. He's a half point a game. He's a top 6 guy for you right now. So even if he becomes, a top 9 because Couturier does come back, that's fine. Uh, I still think the 3-year deal is probably what I would do because right now, long term, there's a lot of things going on with the cap, and there's also these other things going on with that could affect hockey related revenue with cable networks. So in a bad way. So I think teams are going to look at things and be a little more hesitant to give out those long term deals. Now, again, we're talking about Chuck Fletcher, so maybe he won't. Maybe he will. Maybe
Right.
he will do that, even though we don't think he should.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, for me, I think you're right. It's a 2 or 3 year deal. And, if I had to pick a money value based on what we know now, I would say probably like 2 million, 1.5 to 2 million a
Yeah, I
year.
think it's possible he could exceed that, and that's why I didn't want to say anything yet.
Right.
I think it's possible he can go past that.
Yeah. Well, anything's possible with this team.
Yeah, I mean, if he, again, you give a situation where if JVR leaves and he really is driving that line and he continues this season at half a point a game, eh, he could be getting a little bit more than that.
Yeah. All right. Switching gears over to the Phantoms. It was a rough week in Phantoms land. And I think that mostly had to do with them playing Hershey twice,
But
where,
again, this is now a problem. Like we were starting to get on board a little bit,
yeah.
and now we have the slip back.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to it, right? Where the Phantoms just cannot seem to solve Hershey.
No,
And, they lost to Hershey twice this week, 5-2 on Wednesday. Saturday, it was 7-3. 7 goals is the most they've allowed this season. It was pretty ugly, I gotta say.
that is
And
ugly.
they sandwiched it with a win over Wilkes-Barre Scranton 4-2, which is the bright spot here because I
Yeah.
think whereas they have not solved Hershey, they've actually been pretty successful against Wilkes-Barre Scranton this year to date. And so I feel like that's the small win this week, literally
Yeah.
and figuratively. Um, the division is bonkers.
It
We talked about
is.
how close things were. You know, they're technically in fourth place, but four teams are tied there in points. So it's the Phantoms, Springfield, Bridgeport, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Springfield is on a 5-game win streak. Charlotte, who is just above the Phantoms, are on a 3-game winning streak right now. And so really, like we've been saying, the difference between third place and eighth place in the division is almost nothing right now.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with it just yet. I don't. And I feel like it's going to be coming down to, the last month of the season, which I guess is better than last year, but they do need to get on some sort of roll and stay on it for more than 1 week. That's my issue.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it as well. And we are going to have a lot more to say on the Phantoms coming up next.
Today's episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens. I started using Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health, more energy, optimized immune system, and hated taking pills and vitamins. And I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. A special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and all of those other things. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Athletic Greens contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Russ, talking more about the Phantoms, I think that you look at what they're doing right now, and it feels like more of an individual, like prospect development team than a
Yes.
complete team at the moment, which, has its good points for the Flyers, certainly. But at the same time, what we've been saying about the Phantoms is that they need to learn how to win and to drive winning play in order to carry that forward to the Flyers for those guys that are eventually going to move up.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point you make because a lot of people assume because guys are doing well individually that, hey, things are going well with the Phantoms and, things are up and down. I've pulled one stat here that really bugs me. And uh, right now, penalty killing overall in the East, they're 14th out of 15. Like that could cost you your season right there.
Mhm.
And, this is something that really with the talent they have, I feel like there's no excuse why it can't be better. Uh, it should be better. I mean, right now they're at 74.4. The top team is at 85.5 with Springfield. They should be somewhere in the middle. And the fact that they aren't could really cost them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you are struggling as a team against a particular opponent like Hershey, and, I'm going to put an asterisk next to Hershey a little bit just because, with all the recovered guys in Washington, some of their, you know, uh, players for Hershey got sent back down, right?
Yeah.
So they do have some higher end talent with some guys that have just spent, a couple months playing in the NHL. And Henrik Lapierre is always a danger on that team. They have a great goaltender, all of that. But
They're
you know,
number 2 in the league.
yeah. Yeah. So, you look at that, but you say, well, these top prospects for the Flyers should be able to have more of an impact in a game like this individually, and they're not right now. I think that, you get little individual plays. I guess the second game against Hershey was better because they did score 3 times, but, but allowing 7, that kind of negates it, right? But I think that, of all the prospects, they really all had their standout performances against Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So Tyson Foerster, 2 goals that day. Igor Zamula had 2 assists versus Wilkes-Barre. Ali Lixel had 3 assists versus Wilkes-Barre.
That'll go unnoticed. Don't worry, folks.
Well, yes, but
That's just a big, oh, well, yeah, he's a good AHL player.
right, right. But I think, the only one that had more of an impact across the board is Ronnie Attard, who had 2 goals and an assist on the weekend. And I think, it's tough because, again, Hershey is so strong, but, it's a ding on him defensively. There was like a couple of plays, I would say, in especially the first game. But yeah, so I think that some of these guys will need to prove that they can step it up against the tougher competition in order to get a better look.
Yeah, I mean, when you break things down, the Phantoms are somewhere between 17th and 20th in the league out of 32 teams. It's a little bit of an improvement, but it ain't great.
I think that they kind of go back and forth from game to game, whether it's, your top prospects performing well and the rest of the team is just kind of there. And then some games you have, your AHL stalwarts, Cal O'Reilly, stepping up, or Brooks stepping up, or whatnot. It's
I mean,
they
here's the
they
one
need to have a
thing,
more complete team effort.
but you already said it. The Flyers have some pretty good talent on this team, no question about it. But it's nowhere near the top end talent when you're talking about a Hendrix Lapierre or guys like that.
Yeah,
That's the difference here. Like, that is the difference. And, right now that's the talent gap with the Flyers system and some other team systems in general. A lot of the Flyers' best prospects are up. That's really, where it's at. So now you're seeing that, hey, they're good, but they don't have any potential superstars in this Lehigh Valley group. They have some good players, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but that's the whole thing though. Like, Hendrik Leperrier, that's a guy who could really light it up. Like, that guy could be a star in the NHL. The Flyers need a couple of those guys. They do, and they need them in the worst way. We'll see. We'll see if they, either come out of last year's class, or but again, I just think Cutter Gauthier goes back to school, and so I don't think they're going to get him right away. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to come from, but that's where you have to play a better. Yeah, that's where you have to play better as a team. You have to
yeah.
make up for it somehow, and that's where I feel they're lacking.
Well, they've got a couple more chances to do that against Hershey this week,
There you go.
where they're playing them on Wednesday and Saturday with a game against Providence in the
And
middle.
Providence
So
is really good too.
yeah, although I think the Phantoms have actually got Providence's number. That's one team they've also been remarkably successful against this season so far, that the matchup, for whatever reason, works in the Phantoms' favor. But Hershey is just something they haven't been able to solve. And,
Yeah, they have
they've,
Connor McMichael. I'm looking at him.
yeah,
They have a good mix of players there. I mean, it's something where you would hope the Flyers would be at this point, but their mix of players is clearly a little higher end. All that said,
eh,
yeah, I mean, guys are doing well. Maybe, like you said, maybe they do have Providence's number, and that'll help.
yeah. So I'm just looking this week for improvement against Hershey, maybe win one of those 2 games. That would be nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, this is another thing that you could tell that Brink's not quite right. Even though he has 4 goals and 6 points in 10 games, he's only taken 9 shots.
Yeah.
Like, not taken, sorry. He's only registered 9 shots on net. And so to me, that's a big deal because he's a guy that definitely likes to shoot. And if he's not getting them on net or getting scoring chances, that's an indicator.
Yeah, well, we're looking for Bobby Brink and the other guys to step up this week in a tough schedule. Wrapping up with our Flyers fun thing for the Phantoms. They actually had a fun week promotionally, where they had, Flyers night. Lou Nolan was there
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the PA, and then they had an all white jersey, which is the actual fun thing link that we'll put in the show notes, where the jerseys were entirely white with orange detail, no black on them whatsoever, except the skates, which really stood out when you were watching the game. Just
Yeah,
looked like
yeah.
these feet going around the ice. But I actually really like them. I think they look really cool.
The back in the day when I could cover the Phantoms more, they used to change jerseys quite a bit. These there's something that's weird about them. There's something I like. I think I like the jersey. I think I hope as far as the pants, I don't. I think that's what it is. I think the jersey on its own would look a lot better. I actually think it would look cooler if it had the black pants, to be honest.
Right. Well, that defeats the purpose of the white
Well, but I'm just
theme
saying,
for
you want to
the,
look better, Rachel? You want
yeah.
to, you know, I'm,
I liked it, and I liked it watching the game too. Then and the numbers really stood out on
yeah,
the
well, yeah.
feed
I mean,
as
from a
well.
media perspective, that's true.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for today's show. We'll be back again tomorrow. We had a really lovely talk with Hadi Kalakesh, who is a prospects reporter for Dauber and host Locked On NHL Prospects on our network. We went through the whole Flyer system and talked about a whole bunch of guys
And
and
more.
yeah, and more. So, looking towards the draft as well. So we'll get to that all on tomorrow's show. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send in your mailbag questions. You can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.